Hello, everybody. Um, so things are moving a little faster than I anticipated. I thought it would be mid-March to mid-April before the virus would pick up steam to this point and be community spreading to this extent. Um, we know we have confirmed cases of community spread in Solano County, California, Santa Clara County, California, and Oregon State, Washington State. We now have those cases of unconfirmed origin. This means the virus has been spreading unchecked in those areas for the past 2 to 5 weeks. By the time people get infected, they get their first symptoms, and then they get to the point where they require hospitalization, such as all these patients. That indicates that they have been sick already and were infected at a minimum of 2 weeks ago, okay? They were infected 2 weeks ago. They're third generation removed from the source, which means the person who actually traveled, they never met that person. They ran into someone who ran into that person who got infected by that person at the very least. If they're further out in the tree, that means that the person who is the source infected people who have infected people who have infected people who those people have now been infected for 2 weeks. The clusters double every 2.4 days. That means that we have serious wildfires raging in Oregon, Washington State, and in California. If we don't take drastic national action immediately and lock everything down, and this thing goes and gets into everywhere, more so than what it probably already has, and we lose ability to contain it, and even 40% of our population in America gets infected, less than half. And the mortality rate turns out it's only 1% instead of 2%. We're talking 1.5 million American deaths in the next year. And that's at 1% mortality rate, and that's only if less than half of the people in our country get infected by this fast-spreading virus that's 2 to 3 times more contagious than flu. So these are not underestimates. This is the minimum. This is the hopeful estimate. You know from other videos, you know from everything else that I've told you, that I've actually understated everything that I've said so far, that I've thought it's always been worse than what I thought the time before. It moves faster than what I said that would the time before. And now I'm telling you, we're losing our golden window of opportunity to go into total lockdown, just like China did. That's the only way to stop this thing. Sever the transmission chains. You can only do that by getting human beings 6 feet away from each other for at least 2 weeks or longer in an area where it's starting to community spread. You have to take away the host from this virus. You have to get it away from host. It's going to spread. It's highly contagious. And even with a 1% mortality rate, if 40% of the country catches it this year, 1.5 million deaths will happen at 1%. If it's really a 2% mortality rate, then that's 3 million deaths. You know, if it has a 3% mortality rate, ultimately, that's 4.5 million people dying. And that's only if less than half of us catch it this year. Okay? So when people say it's just like a cold, oh, the mortality rate's only 2%, or the mortality rate might only be 1%. 1%'s 1.5 million dead Americans in the next year if it only infects less than half of us. That's what you don't understand. Flu is 0.1% and still kills, as the president said, 69,000 people a year. Some years at 0.1%. And most of the time we keep flu mortality rate at 0.05 to 0.1. And we still have over 10,000 to 60-something thousand deaths per year in a flu season. So this thing, if it really is just 1%, that's a lot more, you know? That's almost 1 million people. So earlier I saw a meme where they had this big scary thing what the media wants you to think coronavirus is, and then a golden retriever saying coronavirus is just like the common cold with only a 3% mortality rate. Only a 3% mortality rate of the American population. If everyone caught it and we're saying like, oh, it's just, 3%, I think that's still like 10.7 million people or something. That's off the top of my head. The 1.5 million, I actually calculated those percentages. But if it was 3% that died, that caught it, that's 3 out of every 100 people. Everybody knows about 100 people. 3 of those people are going to die. Is that cool? Is that a little golden retriever in a meme? Is that a little common cold? No, it is absolutely not. So I don't know what else to say. I don't know how much clearer I can get. Every time we've seen this thing move to, when it started in China, I think they really did. In that country of 1.2 billion people, I think the president of the country was finally told, hey, we have a cluster of 40 suspicious cases of pneumonia in this one hospital in this one area in Wuhan. We really need to let the World Health Organization know that something's going on. But by the time they did, it was going at a speed that no one could have ever anticipated. That's why really quickly their government said, whoa, something's weird, and just shut everything down the way they did, because this thing is moving too fast. It's killing too many people and moving way too fast. You've got to slow it down. You've got to take away the host from the virus and stop it in its tracks. That's if you care about lives. So, I mean, I don't know what else I can say about it. By the time we realized it was in China and we tried to contain it there and implemented the mass quarantines, it had already jumped to other countries. By the time Iran, with their inefficient communication system, got to the top levels of the country, by then the deputy health minister has it, the vice president of Iran has it. Probably thousands of people in Iran actually have it. It's impossible to keep up with how many really have it and how many are really dying. So then by the time we realized it was spreading there, we suddenly saw it in Italy. On a Thursday, they were cool. We're talking, this was a week ago that they realized, oh, we have a little community spread. Now they have lab confirmed almost 1,000 cases, and I'm not sure how many deaths they've had, but I believe it's now almost 20, and this thing kills slow. So it hasn't even really ramped up, and they implemented isolations, quarantines. People are in their homes. They're not going out. Okay? It's spreading now. There's cases in Germany of, that our travelers returned home from Egypt. There's now a case in Canada, a traveler returned home from Egypt. This is exactly what happened a couple days before Iran started saying we have a problem. Egypt already has a problem. It's been running unchecked there long enough where random travelers from Germany and Canada have caught it in Egypt and brought it home out of the country. Okay, so that means that there's probably already hundreds, probably thousands of cases in Egypt unchecked. Those people will start dying in the near future. If they're not already in the first ones, they're probably already dead that are going to die. It's just not becoming obvious yet because the surge hasn't happened. It takes a few weeks for the virus to exponentially grow to the point where all of a sudden it's just overwhelmingly present. That means it's probably already spread into Sudan. That means it's probably already spread into Chad. It's probably already spread into Libya, if it's spreading on that scale in Egypt unchecked. Now we're having it happen in America. We have multiple locations. And you understand, to be tested in America right now, even with the expanded criteria, this means you must have a fever. You must have pneumonia or acute respiratory distress syndrome. You have to have ARDS, okay, or pneumonia severe enough to require you to be hospitalized, and you must test negative for flu. Then, if you meet all those criteria, then they'll test you for COVID-19. So that means that all 4 of these tested cases are all in the hospital with severe pneumonia or acute respiratory distress syndrome, okay? They have fevers and they've tested negative for flu, and those are 4 of them. if we're already at this extent where we already have hospitalized cases that are not connected to travel, they're not connected to anybody else who traveled, that means we have pretty significant community spread. We probably already have hundreds, if not thousands, of cases in those areas. We're going to see it, but by the time it really explodes there, we're going to have fires popping up all over the country from everyone who traveled to and from, and all the business people and long haul truckers and, everything, regular travelers traveling back and forth. We're about to have spring break in America, guys. We cannot be out there traveling all over the country on spring break, people. If you have spring break plans, you better cancel that crap. Spend the money on a couple weeks worth of food and toilet paper and animal food and whatever you're going to need to hunker down if we get the orders that we have to do what China did and isolate ourselves in an extreme way for about a month to take down this initial wildfire that's now started. We're in trouble. And I don't know how far gone it is, but it doesn't look good. And the fact that we did not immediately shut down those areas is a colossal mistake. Who gave it to the people? Who gave it to them? Who else did all those people give it to on the exponential basis, where every infected person is infecting several other people? Best estimate, is it's at least between 2 and 3 people, up to 4 people. And then we have super spreaders. So the average person, if you draw a dot on a map and you draw you draw just 3 lines off there. So we'll get an even picture, right? Between 2 and 4. And then you put dots at the end of every, those 3 lines, and you draw 3 lines off every single one of those dots and put dots at the end of those 3 lines. Then you start drawing 3 lines off of those dots and putting dots on those 3. That's how this thing is infecting. Clusters are doubling every 2.4 days. We have only a short time. We have to act faster than we've ever acted, in a more extreme way than we've ever acted. Spanish flu in 1918 that we still talk about to this day, what a horrific pandemic, killed over, 20 to 50 million people globally, all that kind of stuff. 500,000 people total in America died of that, and they tell horror stories about it to this day. Everybody saw death. This, if it kills 1.5 million people, a conservative estimate, just here, and it spreads like this through a lot of other countries, then it will top 1918 Spanish flu and its overall death toll. And that's just science and numbers, not speculation. By the way this thing infects and the way it moves, we're already in trouble. So get ready, get your stuff together, get prepared, because the next year to year and a half is going to be a hell of a ride, not just for us, but for the whole world. And it's going to get real scary at times for everybody. So what if 80% of the people that get it, 85% of the people that get it, it's no worse than the common cold? It's still a hell of a lot more lethal than anything we've ever seen come through in the last century. And way more contagious and easily spread and almost impossible to detect as it moves through the asymptomatic and the 80 to 85% that it's just mild for. It does affect children. I've seen the children dying in the videos from Iran that were verified as being legitimate videos of little girls infected with this in Iran. They're struggling to breathe. It's horrifying. Children are being affected. Young people are dying as well, It's not just the old people. And even if it was just the old people, it's not cool that 1.5 million elderly people in our country die this year. Even if it was only them. But it's not. It's going to be young people are going to get pulled in. Little kids are going to get pulled into that total. Your parents, your grandparents, your aunts, your uncles, potentially your children. So shrug it off as a cold. Shrug it off as no worse than a cold or flu. This is ominous, guys. We're seeing something we've never seen before with a virus that we possess absolutely no immunity to. Don't be complacent because we got lucky with some other viruses in our lifetime. This one is different.